Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Future Podcast. Here with you is your host, Aaron Alexander, and myself, Mahat Mangal. And today, what are we looking at, Aaron?
Yeah. So in today's episode, we took inspiration from the Capitol Riots. So we went down that rabbit hole, and we also explored the political environment in the United States.
Yeah, and we also looked at social media, polarization, the Second Amendment, gun ownership, and all that. Yeah.
So I hope that you find this episode educational and happy listening.
I was looking at the incident and then how there was a lot of guns around, how
Okay.
how people in the US have this feeling like they have to protect their government, that they can, if there is some injustice, they have to restore order, that kind of an idea in their mind. And for that, they often say that we are allowed to carry guns in the constitution for even for this purpose. So I was looking at the amendment about gun ownership, weapons, QAnon, conspiracy theories.
What is QAnon?
QAnon is apparently it started off with one guy posting a conspiracy theory saying that uh, it's a far right idea that there's a conspiracy theory that was developed by this some anonymous person. He signed it off as Q. He was claiming that he had a Q level of security clearance from the US government. So the conspiracy theory was that the 2016 elections were, there was all these investigations about how whether it was, manipulated from the outside, all that. So the conspiracy theory is that there is a group of Satan worshipping pedophiles in the government, and they are supposed to stand up against them. Uh, at some point, it also like calls for like day of judgment kind of scenes. Uh, like they even talk about. I read how they talk about like judge putting Hillary Clinton in the stands, and there are ideas like that. That's like extremely um, violent. Seems like baseless ideas, but somehow with the population it got attention, and it became associated with these far right groups. So it's an anonymous person who, I don't even know if they know who it is, but
Can you
yeah,
also describe what far right means? Far right, far left. That's a term.
I think like far right, far left, either of both of it is an issue. Of course, extremism in any form is bad. So far rights and lefts would be like, you can also say that the rights would be conservative in their ideas and the left would be the liberals. They'll be different in their economic ideas. Right would be more about capitalistic ideas, and the left would be or the socialist side. But if you take the US, they don't really have a left as such. It's like moderate right, and because both of the parties like believe in capitalistic ideas. So if you look at it economically, none of them are like really socialistic, except really few candidates like, what is his name? Dude, the presidential candidate, the really old one. Once again, I am appealing for you. Yeah, he would be one of the
Bernie.
very
Bernie
Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
Yeah, so he would be the very few who has like more socialistic ideas when you compare. But yeah, so far right would be the believer people who believe in uh, conservative ideas. They don't, even if you take like the recent abortion case. So conservatives would be more prone to stay within like how they see the world. It's bound to be more uh, conservative because it was patriarchal society, because it's also bound to be patriarchal. It's also uh, what do you say, pro gun. pro-capitalistic, more individual freedom flouting people. I mean, this would be a very simple way of putting it, but yeah, that these are a very few characteristics, and these it keeps changing, like what the far extremes of any group can be. So there are also like militias in the US, which I was like reading about, which I would like to deep dive into, like how there are militia groups in the US, like these war veterans. They come out of the war, then they don't have anything to do, and they form these groups, which is also mentioned in the Constitution. In the Second Amendment itself, it is. Let me see if I can pull up that. Yeah, here it is. Let me share the screen. Yeah, so this is a page out of the Constitution of the United States of America, where this is the line uh, that is like at the heart of the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So this had several different interpretations. Like as you can see, several states have differences in how they even place the commas. Like some seek to, yeah. So funnily, like it was only in 2008 that this became like associated with individual gun ownership after this case where the District of Columbia versus Heller. After this case, that's where the Supreme Court ruled. As you can see, it protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms in the United States. But before that, it was mostly about how it was more about the militia groups.
You
So I
define
also
militia for us?
yeah, look at this. So they're like paramilitary organizations, like civilians, forming an organization who are armed. Uh, who I'm like really I'm like I need to read more about this, but uh, basic understanding is that they are armed. They are a group that believes in certain ideas. I'm really interested in seeing how this is like governed in the US, but maybe because they already have gun laws, that enable gun ownership. Then also you can't stop people from forming up associations. So militias would be private armies, I would say. So which is also like really troublesome for public order, I think.
And I
Militias
also,
are allowed to exist as private groups so long as they don't take their activities into the public realm or plan to do so.
so they
That's
can
the
talk about it. They can be a group, they can discuss their ideas amongst themselves, but it should not interfere with other people's lives.
spill out. Yeah, but I am curious, like in this age of social media, things will spill out. Discussions are bound to happen on the social media, which as the subject like of the January 6th in what's it called, insurrection. That was like mostly born out of the social media where people are continuously engaging, right? So yeah, it's also really hard to police social media. But the other day I saw a post on Reddit where one person got a letter from the Homeland Security uh, s- saying that this particular person had made a comment saying burn all the some institutions because they overturned the decision, made abortion illegal. This particular individual was angry, and he posted saying something calling for burning and of for some agencies. So 2 days later, he gets a letter from the Homeland Security saying you shouldn't, uh, you know, do this again, like a warning letter.
At the school.
Yeah. like threat management.
It's quite bewildering how things got so messy. There's so much
Mhm.
noise. Like I can't make sense of like where things went wrong and like yeah. How do you, if you have, how do you like justify that?
I am this recent now the hearings are going on, right? So there was this lady who came in and she's testifying against all the, yeah, her name is Cassidy Hutchinson. So he seems to be in trouble, dude, Donald Trump. And the way he was like speaking at that rally was also not really helpful, I think. Uh, so as this ex White House aide, Cassidy Hutchinson, she's saying that he was angered. So he did not want. He yeah she says that he knew that the protesters were armed,
Mhm.
and then he says, "I don't fucking care what that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Uh, let my people in." They yeah. So this guy was extremely divisive as a candidate even from the beginning because of his ideas, because of his nature of how he spoke, how he handled things, so different from how the usual presidents carried themselves. So even before his elections, you remember all that controversial remarks he made about women, uh, despite which he still won the elections, which is already a sign that there was a large group of people who identified with ideas that he held, or who at least thought that it was okay to say that. And so I mean at this in this highest office, he and also in this case also there is a lot of disinformation. So Trump was always a fan of saying climate change was not real, which we have enough and more scientific evidence. But he, from being in this powerful office, carries a lot of weight, right? So he did say that he was a strong believer of that it was not a real thing, which hugely influenced people, the public. So disinformation was always there with him. So, and you know how hard it is to handle masses of people. Like you remember in college and how people, when they're like violent, it's extremely hard for people to keep them in control, whoever is leading them. So Trump could have done a better job. Definitely, he could have called them to calm down, which they would have listened to. But instead, he urged them to march to the Capitol, which is bound to get bloody, and people lost their lives. I think 5 people died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So people dying. And the sad thing is, a lot of people must have believed, that it was the election was rigged. In because a lot of people do just live their lives, just going through what they're being told or what
So
they read in the media. Yeah.
on YouTube, the speech that he gave at like just before the riot, um, like a 30-minute or 37-minute version is there on YouTube. It cuts off before it's actually done. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because that's like around the time when the riot started and they switched resources. I don't know.
Hmm.
So in that, like he mentions like the night of the election, like he says that at 10 p.m. like the votes were such that he was victorious, and by the next morning everything changed and the Democrats had won. Uh, I mean, if you want to investigate it, I guess we could like look at news polls and see what the results were like at 10 p.m. Like, I mean, like he's saying stuff that we can fact check, right?
I mean, if this was like true, there would have always been an investigation done into it, but I think he destroyed any amount of credibility that he had with the riot thing, which instantly, even with people who must have been just leaning into Trump, I think it would have like made a lot of people question about his ability as a leader, or and I don't know, I don't really trust, I don't know whom to trust. Like we don't have much sources like any other civilian. There's always this concept of deep state. Like there's a state and there's a deep state that controls everything from behind, kind of idea. Uh, so I don't know. The only thing is I don't know, but it seems like he didn't come off as really a legitimate, really a this is not the credible way to go about it. Even if he had some issues with it,
Yeah.
he should have handled it better. And yeah, the votes going up, it does all the time. It does happen like that all the time in elections. If you just randomly pick a point, there will be a time when the candidate is ahead, and once the more ballots are counted, the things change. So it's not like it's impossible. It's not impossible. He could have picked the point just saying 10 p.m. it was like this, but next morning, yeah. So what? More in the next 6 hours, more votes were in their favor. Um, he could have definitely handled it better, I think. This you remember that one guy who was dressed up like with horns and all? He's called the QAnon shaman or something. So when I was like hitting up QAnon on Google, his was the first name. The Google was
Yeah.
suggesting his name, and the Wikipedia is like he's an activist and something, but he
He
was
sat
present.
he sat on the speaker's chair.
Oh,
This guy.
yeah. The I don't know. He was wearing some leather animal fur skin, some fur thing. I don't know. Crazy people out there, dude. So what happens when you arm these crazy people? I think Capitol riots were like a perfect example of how bad things can happen, how bad things could go. The founding fathers of America had this idea that something someday the government could be hijacked, and then it's upon the people to take the power back. That kind of scene, but it also like boils down to what the people believe is to be true, and in that media plays a really big role. So I think media has long been hijacked, like Fox News, things like that. So polarization is a big issue. So if you look at the right and like let's say the Republican and Democratic divide, it is almost like 50-50. You know, that's a big issue. Like we are being put into these bubbles and in ideas that we all only believe in. Like you follow people on Twitter that you believe in, that you are automatically being put into these separate bubbles that so there's no room for dialogue. So I don't know. It's all a very new issue that we're dealing because of social media and media going out of their real job of being true to what they want to report. I don't know how to handle it, or I don't know how. For one, they can at least ban the guns and bring in better gun control. That's one, definitely. And yeah, what do you think? What
I
else did you
wanna
find?
I wanna take the topic to the hearings that are going on right now.
Sorry, to the
Hearings, like
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
the committee for the rights. So do you have any information about? So I'm assuming that the break of around a year and a half was to collect evidence. And can we like sort of establish a timeline of what this hearing is about?
Not so sure about the timeline bit, but I was reading this one paper by one student in Harvard. It's actually a dissertation in which they studied all the 691 subjects. Let me share the screen. So this paper, US Capitol Riot Examining Writers, Social Media and Disinformation, in which you can see 691 members who were on the site. So they found out that, out of this, they selected 124 people. Majority of the participants are white male. So yeah, as you can see, this person took a study, and you can see how the demographics are. Majority of the participants are white male, employed, 30% employed. No, I mean 30% are college educated. A number of defendants had associations with Qanon conspiracy theory. And this Proud Boys. So these are the different groups: Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3%ers. Veterans were highly overrepresented in the mob. 17% or 117 people. So the demographics of that group is interesting. It means like 30% of the people are college educated. So again, like education does nothing. Education is nothing without what do you say? I don't know. Wisdom. That's proven true here. Do you have a timeline on you?
There's a website recently. They're just showing the latest on what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it's important to note that um there might be bad actors. Like there has to be someone who is at the source of the misinformation that's like misleading and instigating people on social media. So, general word of advice to be a little more cautious.
Also, like once you are in a mob, it's really easy to be carried away. Like you feel like you're immune to the law because you see that strength in numbers kind of mentality takes over. Uh, so maybe out of the 697 people, maybe 10 people, if it was up to 10 people to take the thing forward, it would have worked. It would still work because mob mentality, like is like crazy. If you look at uh incidents involving mobs have always been crazy, like in India, for example. uh, I'm just saying that because that's the first one that comes to my mind. How people like kill the others on the basis of an allegation of having carried a certain kind of meat, having carried beef. How mobs can turn violent and get out of control is an established fact. So it's nice to see. It's nice to see that people are being held accountable, that they've been able to identify the people, because maybe in the past, you could get away with it, mobs. But now we have cameras everywhere. You have facial facial ID. There's no room to get out of things. And yeah, 697 out of what? Out of the 5,000 odd people that assembled there. It's like what, 10%, 10%, 10, 12%. So there will always be a violent group in all all groups of people. Like, I think it just went out of hand, and
So it's
maybe there are.
actually not 5,000 there. I think at the end it was like closer to 30. Like if you scroll
30.
down, yeah, if you scroll down, you can see.
Oh, yeah, 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 15.
Yeah.
Then it goes up.
So like I think the day before they recalculated and
Mhm. It was definitely pre-planned to an extent.
yeah, no, there's
So,
overwhelming evidence that it was.
mhm. So the investigation currently is about how much part Trump had to play in that, right? He definitely could have stopped it. I know that much. At that speech, but it's not up to me to decide the fate anyway. President Trump tweets, there are these things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victories unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Remember this day forever. I'm sure they will. So, somehow he was like trying to make it heroic, with great patriots. It's interesting. I know your pain. I know your hurt. This was a fraudulent election. See, he's just claiming things. I mean, I've always hated this Trump character, so I was not surprised, but I was like, hmm, so many common people.
Simplicity, simplicity can attract.
Yeah, being open about. Now he's making a comeback. He's like talking facts about how the U.S. screwed up in Iraq and all that. I saw some videos online. Oh, this Proud Boys, New Zealand has like labeled them as a terrorist organization, and they have banned Proud Boys. I mean, it's so cheesy, like Proud Boys. You want to be a member of Proud Boy? I mean, so cheesy for me. I don't know. Uh,
So I think over the next few weeks and months, we're gonna get new information from the hearing that the Capitol Rights Committee is putting across. So it's like we should just keep an eye out on what sort of information they're providing.
yeah, and it's always important to keep a tab on what's happening around you, what the politics, what's happening in the political sphere. I would say like don't stay away from anything because you don't find it interesting right away. But I would say like dive into it, form your opinions about things, think about laws, whether you like them, whether you don't like them.
Yeah. On that note, I think we approach the topic of the Second Amendment and gun ownership. So we personally don't have um, a very clear idea on how to regulate it and how to create or how to reduce the havoc that guns are causing in America. So we would be open to listening to the opinions or the thoughts that you have about gun ownership. So please do comment down below your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, drop your comments. We would like to engage with you guys, which also brings us to Slack. This is a space that we have where we can formulate ideas. We can engage with You can engage with us. So the link will be down in the description. Click that, join our community, suggest us topics. You can always be a part of this process that we have here at the Future Podcast. And yeah, thank you for listening. If you haven't
Yes.
already, hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. Yeah.
And catch you in the next episode.
Yeah.
Bye bye.